What is up, you guys? Welcome to episode 36 of the show. I'm Jennie O'Connor, and I help multi-passionate creatives slay imposter syndrome so they can grow their influence and self-promote without feeling slimy. If you are already subscribed, I love your adorable face. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, please hit subscribe because I have got some interviews coming up with a couple different individuals who make money in ways you would never have thought possible. Super fascinating, super cool, y'all. You do not want to miss out. Today's episode has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to talk about time management for multi-potentialites since I began this podcast. But before I did, I wanted to have my own time management system down on lock. That's why it's taken me so long. So through my journey of self-development over like the last 20 years, I have always been looking for the golden ticket when it came to this. Like the one method that was going to maximize my creative energy, minimize my distraction, and triple my productivity. And I believe that if I kept searching, I would find a single system out there that would make that happen. I have read so many books on this subject, you guys, so many. Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect, Gary Keller's The One Thing, Getting Things Done. I watched the entire course that came with my to-do list app called Nosby that is also entirely based on getting things done. But it was like this epic course. It was like 16 modules or something crazy. I watched the whole dang thing. I read Cal Newport's Deep Work, the ideology of which I absolutely loved. I even loved components of Michael Hyatt's Free to Focus. But I realized something. After trying these things and using them for a little while and ultimately having them all fail, these systems are super linear. I am sure that these books and these methodologies work like gangbusters for the specialists out there among us, but it's not how we work. Squirrel brain struggle is real. I know you feel me on this, but I still think that all of these books have components in them that are definitely worth looking at. The bottom line, I don't think there's one single method that will work for all of us. So I think if I were to make it my mission to teach people about time management with one system and one system only, that it would fail. And that makes sense to me because each multi-potentialite, each and every one of you listening to this right now is a rare butterfly. You know, you have your own unique way of looking at things. You have your own unique career description. You have your own unique list of the things that you need that will make you thrive, without which you will wither away. So, of course, everyone's going to have a different system that works better for them. So what we're going to do today, instead of teaching you a time management system that I'm convinced it will work for all of you, is I'm going to talk about the components of a time management system that I believe are essential. So as long as your system has these things, you will be good. And then you need to sort of fill in the gaps yourself. That's the only thing that's going to keep you satisfied, right? So I think without these, this list of things that I'm about to explain to you, that it's not possible to be utilizing your time management system to its fullest potential or to be working at your fullest potential. But then you're going to have to mix and match. All right. That's just the way of the everything enthusiast. And you may as well give yourself permission now to massage this and rework it and change it and do different things in different seasons. Because if you give yourself permission now, you will save yourself a ton of grief. And I will touch on that again later. So the very first thing that is critical to a time management system that will work for you is to train yourself to be focused. Stay with me. I hear all the resistance that's coming up in my own mind and in yours. Stay with me. So Cal Newport talks about training yourself to be focused in his book, Deep Work. If you haven't read it, I really encourage you to do so. Cal says that focus is a skill. It's not a habit. It is literally a muscle that needs to be trained. If you don't train, you won't be good at it. It is like thinking that you can go out and do a half marathon this Saturday without training for it at all. You will probably fail laughably. Same goes for focus. He also says that if you fill all of your boredom with noise, things like social media, you actually weaken your focusing skills. So think about if you, every time you got hungry, went and ate potato chips, you're weakening your health. you're going to eventually put on weight. So social media is 100% junk food. It's McDonald's, it's potato chips. It is the stuff that is lessening your focusing superpower. So Cal says that the antidote to this is to embrace boredom. And I know that boredom isn't really a thing for people like us. Like, I kind of laugh when people tell me they're bored because I will never be bored. I wouldn't be bored on a deserted island. I would always have a to-do list a mile long. So I'm sure that a lot of you can relate to that. But what he means is be still, be present. Practice resisting distraction. So if you are in line at the post office waiting, for example, don't jump on your phone and scroll. Practice breathing. Look around you. Write a story about the person in front of you in your head. Just let yourself be rather than filling all of that time. That empty space has to be filled with something. I have to be scrolling through Instagram. That just seems to be how we're all wired these days. And that, he says, is the problem and why so few of us are capable of focusing on a really, really deep level. Something that you need to know is that when you engage in task switching, so for example, when you are writing an article and your Slack notification goes off and you jump screens to go check the Slack notification, your attention doesn't immediately follow to the Slack message. A residue of your attention remains stuck thinking about the article. So what this does is it makes you less efficient at both tasks. And then when you go back from Slack to the article you were writing, the same thing happens. And over time, it compounds. The residue from this task switch adds up to the residue from this task switch. And ultimately, your concentration is just shot altogether. So people who make the argument that they're great at multitasking are 100% wrong. It just means they do a lot of things badly. So note to self. Cal also tells us that our working lives should be built around the experience of this deep focused work. It's essentially what flow is. And you guys all know what flow is. It's that like euphoric state where you lose time, where you're engaged in the act of creation, where when you're done and you look down at what has been done, you're like, did I write that? Did I paint that? It's almost like an out of body experience. That is what deep focused work can get for you. And Cal calls that a proven path to life satisfaction. So he describes 4 different types of deep work. 2 of these I don't think are gonna apply to everything enthusiasts at all, but I'm gonna give them all to you anyway. There's the monastic deep work. That's just what it sounds like. Monks spend hours and hours every day sitting and chanting and meditating. They're monastic. They have eliminated all of the outside noise. You can do deep work like that, but let's be real, who's gonna? Especially us squirrel-brained people, right? Probably not in the cards for us. But then there's bimodal deep work. So you have focus time and then you have social time or just low brain effort time, or watching TV time or whatever. So with the bimodal method, you could maybe give 4 days a week to depth, to deep work, to writing your novel, whatever that is, and 3 days a week to doing the other stuff, the admin, whatever that is. And in a year, like he actually describes a professor who dedicated seasons. So like 1 semester was dedicated to deep work, 1 semester was dedicated to teaching and having office hours and stuff like that. There's also rhythmic deep work, which is where you just set a routine and then you stick to it. So if you've ever heard of Jerry Seinfeld's famous method for writing jokes, he wrote a joke every single day and he attributes that more than anything to his career success. And he just bought a wall calendar and he made an X on it every single day. And the goal was just not to break the chain, just write jokes every day. So rhythmic deep work is basically how I write my novel every day for 30 minutes. And I've actually sort of changed it to like a rhythmic / bimodal model recently because I'm in a new season and we're going to get to that. And the last way to do deep focused work is called journalistic, where you literally, any free time you find, you just like go scribble on a napkin and write your next blog post. that is also not for the novice. So I think that the two that probably are very unrealistic for people like us are the monastic, because we're already distracted people. So monastic deep work would take, I think, years of working up to that level of ability to focus. And the journalistic one is also like, if there's stuff going on and you're just shaving 15 minutes out and you're going and like expecting that to be your best, most concentrated efforts, that's probably also unrealistic. So to create your own deep work ritual, follow these steps. First, decide where you're going to work and for how long. So like, will the door be shut? Will you put a do not disturb sign on your doorknob? Will your desk be cleared off of anything and everything that's distracting? And ideally, you would use this location only for deep work. So your brain just slips into that mode automatically. Not always practical, but if you can, it's ideal. The second thing you should do is give whatever your work period is going to be a time frame. So keep it like a discrete challenge and not just this open-ended slog. Like, I'm going to do deep work all day Tuesday is a little bit vague and therefore harder to accomplish. Step 3, make rules. So are you going to ban internet use while you're doing deep work? They have these apps that you can put on Facebook that like after 10 minutes, you can't get in again without having to solve a really complicated challenge. There are the distraction-free screens on your computer so that you can't see all the windows that are open and you can't access them. So what kind of rules are you going to employ to make sure that you are doing your most focused work? Or maybe you'll use a metric such as like words produced in 20-minute intervals. If you don't set these rules, you have to mentally litigate what you should and shouldn't be doing. So if you just make you could stick a Post-it note on your computer of the rules that you have to be following. Every 20 minutes I get up and I walk around and take a stretching break. But you know that that's 20 minutes of focused work that you have to do first. And the last piece of this is to ensure that your brain gets the support it needs. Willpower is a finite thing. And it decreases as the day goes on. That's why it's probably important to, you should find your most productive hours. But for most people, that's when they wake up in the morning or like after they have their coffee. Like if you're not a morning person, that's not going to be right away after you get out of bed. But our brain is freshest in the morning and that just follows logic. So for a lot of people, it's easier to have the willpower to focus earlier in the day. And then to maintain energy levels throughout the day, caffeine if you need it, good high energy food, integrating light exercise into your day, stretching breaks, breathing breaks, a short 3-minute meditation. Also, if you have materials that you need to use for your project, organize those ahead of time to minimize friction for getting started. You want to decrease that activation energy to something very, very small. Okay, the second piece of a time management system that will work for you is to give yourself permission. Right now, I know that you are listening to me talk about focus and being like, Jennie, you're crazy. I am distracted by sparkly things. What about this do you not understand? Oh, I get it. Oh, I hear you. So telling you to focus is like, yeah, whatever. But I have 2 things to say to you about this. You can build your focusing muscles, just like you can get better at meditating by practicing, or yoga, or weightlifting, or resisting the urge to smoke a cigarette after you've quit. The more you practice, the better you get. You can train focus into your psyche. You can, period. I promise. The second thing that is really important is I think for us, for everything enthusiasts, multi-potentialites, multi-passionate people with squirrel brain, is that our lack of ability to focus correlates to this idea of giving ourselves permission. And I talked about that in episode 30. I think the most important thing we can do, people like us can do for ourselves, hands down, is give ourselves permission to chase after all the sparkly things we want. Give yourself permission to do things that won't necessarily earn you money just because they call to your curiosity, just because you have to. I just have to Google this right now. Or because it brings you joy, like coloring in an adult coloring book for 2 hours at the end of your day because it feels good and it brings down your stress levels. What happens when you give yourself permission is that it becomes infinitely easier to focus on whatever the thing is that you are engaged in at the time, because the FOMO, the fear of missing out that you used to have when in the past, when you had to choose the money generating task or the responsible task or the thing that you didn't want to do but felt like you had to do, you should do this thing. When you made those choices in the past, you assumed that meant you couldn't do these other things that you want to do, that bring you joy, art for art's sake. Maybe none of it is money making. It doesn't freaking matter, you guys. Now that you have permission to go and do those things, you can concentrate harder on getting this thing done. In fact, you're more motivated to, because the sooner you get this responsible thing, money-making thing done and over with, you can go do the fun thing. So I promise this is one of those things you have to learn by doing. And it's all well and good to say, like, give yourself permission, go. But try it, you guys. It will change everything. And this has been corroborated by Laura Maya in her episode and Perry Noper in his episode. We have all found our ability to focus got infinitely stronger the second we gave ourselves permission to do all of the things that we wanted to do. So think of it this way. If you allow yourself to chase after squirrels, but you do that during designated squirrel chasing time only, then the other time is dedicated to focus. So this, I believe, is an irrefutable rule to creating a time management system that will knock it out of the park for you. The next piece is to spend nearly all of your time in the desire zone. So this one comes from Michael Hyatt and his book, Free to Focus. Michael, in the book, he creates a grid with 4 quadrants in it. So the desire zone is where we want to be. The desire quadrant describes tasks at which we are both passionate and proficient. So we love them and we're good at them. At the opposite end, so the bottom quadrant, is the drudgery quadrant, where the tasks in that quadrant we're not good at and we don't enjoy them. Then there are the other 2, the distraction quadrant, where we like the tasks, but we're not very good at them. And the disinterested quadrant, where we're proficient at these things, but we're not very passionate about them. So, bottom line that Michael Hyatt is getting at in this book is that life is short and we are at our best when we are doing things in the desire quadrant. That is our zone of genius. This is a no-brainer. So I know it's not realistic to say that you can avoid the other quadrants that aren't the desire quadrant entirely. Of course you can't. But you should think long and hard about where the things you do in a week land on that graph. And take stuff off your plate that's not in the desire quadrant. Delegate things, whether it's in your business or your family. You can hire affordable contractors on Upwork. You can pay your kids more allowance to do the laundry and unload the dishwasher. Just little things, but try to find the stuff that will free up more time for you to work in your zone of genius. Even if you barter. Even if you don't feel like you have money to hire people right now and you barter with them, as long as the value that you're exchanging in return for what they're giving you involves a task in your desire zone, this is an optimal way to operate. So I'm not saying that life isn't hard and that everything should always be fun and easy and like unicorns and rainbows. Even as an entrepreneur, there are going to be tasks that aren't fun. Bookkeeping isn't fun. I mean, obviously you can hire someone to do that eventually, but maybe you can't afford to do that at first. I am not saying that you won't have to do challenging things. In fact, I think our lives as everything enthusiasts are a bit more challenging than the lives of the less easily distracted, more linear people out there. Now, don't get me wrong. Being a specialist, being a doctor and a lawyer is also very challenging. But at least the path for those people is really clear. Like, what do I do next? People have gone before you. For us, we have to figure out what we want to do, which is everything. Then we have to figure out how to get from point A to point B. and like make a living doing weird amalgamations of things that there is no college prep course for. So I think that's why it's even more important for us, people like us, to practice lifestyle design. It may take decades, and it may not be the most direct route to millions of dollars. Just being honest with you. But if we literally have no other roadmap to follow, I suppose following our joy is a pretty good roadmap. Yeah? So here's an example from my own life. I copyright for a lot of people, but specifically for a finance company, and it's super, super technical work, and I have to like know the ins and outs of this really complicated, little known procedure bank shenanigans, you guys. And it's a lot of legalese, and it's a lot of business jargon, and it's challenging, and it's often quite dreary. I'm just going to be honest. There are times where I'm like, I cannot believe I have to do this right now. But because I know that as soon as I crank this out, I can go read my book on magic, or make a funny reel, or research my article on manifestation that I'm writing, or work on my collage, it's really not so bad. It even takes mundane jobs that you don't love, this having, the permission to go do the other things, make going to your boring 9 to 5 a little bit easier, because like you just know that there's going to be, you can still do that other stuff. So I think that the more you can fill your empty hours, or you probably don't have empty hours, but your time outside of whatever your job to pay your bills is, with work that's in your desire zone, the better your time management strategy, whatever you ultimately choose, is going to work for you. The happier you're going to be, the happier the people around you are going to be, because they're just going to feed off your enthusiasm and your joy. So we've got the deep work piece, we've got the desire zone piece. The next piece is scheduling your time and keeping your appointment with yourself. So you probably already try some like aspect of scheduling your time, but do you keep appointments with yourself? I think I've talked about this before, how I thought when I was younger that being an artist was like this super whimsical, free-spirited lifestyle. Like I could wake up whatever time I wanted every day and have coffee on the patio in the sunshine and, just kind of think about life and go for a walk and wait for inspiration to strike. And this is an absolute fallacy. And I so wish someone had been like, not real. That isn't going to work out for you at all. I have learned you do not wait for inspiration. You show up every damn day, you sit your ass down in the chair, and you plow through the process of creating, even if inspiration isn't there. Because the muse is a fickle beast, and she won't visit us as often or as consistently as we like. But she's infinitely more likely to show up for the people who show up for themselves. So what is it they say? Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Your butt in chair, that's your preparation. That's you being like, all right, I'm here. I'm doing the work. I am uninspired at the moment, but at least I'm putting in my hours. So if you have a good enough job, like I discussed in the episodes on lifestyle design, I believe they were 19 and 21, then your passion projects have to occur in your off time. If you don't schedule time for yourself first, your nights and your weekends are going to fill up with the demands of other people. Before you know it, you will have no time left for yourself to do the things that light you up. So you have to make appointments with yourself, and then you have to honor that commitment. Like you would honor having lunch with your best friend, like you would honor showing up for book club or a work meeting or all the other things that you do show up for. You have to show up for yourself too. It weakens your self-trust to break commitments to yourself. So just don't do it. So because so many of us are self-directed in all of our pursuits, scheduling your time is like literally the only way to move the needle and to make progress. So definitely don't leave that component out of your time management strategy. The last piece, you guys, is to review and refine. And I'm not really good at this, or at least I haven't been in the past. So you can't improve what you don't measure. Duh. And that's why I made this last, because I do think this is the number one non-negotiable of creating a time management strategy. So a good review, nightly, weekly, quarterly, you can do all of those, should entail assessing what works and refining to make it better if there is room for improvement, and then just getting rid of everything else that isn't working or is keeping you stagnant or just not contributing in some way. So these days, my to-do list is kind of bare bones. Like, I love to plan, and on Sunday nights I get together, like I sit down and I do my to-do list for the week, and I was spending a lot of time doing that and then not getting to nearly half of each day's tasks, and then I was having to push everything back every day, and that's what I called my nightly review, which was just moving all of my to-do list tasks that hadn't gotten done to the next day. That's not what a review is for. Now I know. So these days, like, I only put something on my to-do list if it's due that day. So hopefully my list has 2 things at the most, maybe 3. And if it's 3, they need to be smaller things. And then everything else lives on this overflow list. It actually says overdue, and I wish I could change that because that gives me agita a little bit. But I can do the things on my list for that day, and then I can go to that overflow list and slowly chip away at those things that need doing but aren't necessarily time sensitive. And sometimes I rearrange the priorities of those on the overflow list, so I know that I need to work in a certain order. But this has helped me really, really well to not just keep disappointing myself every day and shoving everything onto the next day's list. So that's really what's working for me really well right now. But something else that worked for me in the past was to create a weekly to-do list and then give myself the freedom inside of the container of the week to do those tasks in whatever order appealed to me the most. Because again, we like to chase after sparkly things, so we're definitely going to have an opinion on what sounds nice to do right now. I want to do that right now. And so if it's on the list, it can get done. As long as you feel like you have a good sense of how much you can accomplish in a week, and as long as you're hitting deadlines, that structure might work for you really well. One of the things that I think is important to make note of is that we are works in progress, and we will change, and our lives will have seasons. And so what works for you now may not work for you in the summertime when there are more daylight hours, and you feel more compelled to go out and have happy hour with friends, or vice versa. You're getting so much done in the summer, but when we enter daylight savings time and it gets dark earlier, you just don't have that same stamina to get as much done. So be gentle with yourself. And that's where this review piece comes in so handy, is you can tweak and you can say, in this season, I'm going to utilize this method because that one isn't working for me anymore. So nowadays, my review process is at the end of every night involves 3 things. The first one is my morning routine. So I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but I have the list of stuff I want to be a part of my morning routine is 20 items long. And I was just talking with someone about this on Instagram who was like, I made a post 8 morning habits to set you up for success. And the guy was like, dang, if I could get through all of these, but it takes me until 2 in the afternoon to do everything. And I just started laughing. I was like, oh my God, I feel so called out, because that's 100% true. Back when I was doing morning pages, which is free form writing it says 20 minutes, but it would take me an hour. Never mind meditating, doing a tarot card pull, exercising for 20 minutes. There's just so much. So what I have figured out is a good method for me right now in this season of my life is to take 4 things that I consider non-negotiables and do each of them 4 days a week. So if I stagger it, if I do, work out for 20 minutes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I do meditating Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then I don't have to do all of them in a day, but I'm still doing each of those 4 things 4 times a week. So at the end of the day, I assess on a scale of 1 to 7 how well I did that day. I have to get at least 2 of the things done. I think 2 days a week I have to do 3 just to make the math work out right. But did I do them that day? how, was I phoning it in or did I really do it? How can I do it better tomorrow? And so that's the first point of my review. And the way that I track this, I actually have a habit tracking worksheet, and I'll include the link to that in the show notes. It's super fun because it allows you to gamify your healthy habits and like compete against yourself every week. So if you beat your last week's score, you get a prize. Like, I'm all about prizes and celebrations, and buy yourself a bottle of champagne or go get a massage or take a hike, somewhere that's like a drive, make a half day of it. Whatever would feed your soul and make you feel good, that should be what your reward is. So that's the first piece. The second piece of the review is to look for the things that were due that day and assess how long it took me to do them. So I have a time tracker app on my computer called Toggle, but you can also use a Pomodoro timer for this. And you'll get really good if you work in 20-minute increments with the Pomodoro Technique. You will get really good at figuring out how much you can accomplish in a 20-minute segment of time. So you'll be able to start planning when you're planning out your to-do list. Oh, this task is going to take me, how many Pomodoro sessions? 8 in a day to get it done. It used to take me forever to write blog posts. I am a recovering perfectionist, and I didn't have a whole bunch of other moving parts going on. I wasn't doing the podcast at the time, and sometimes it would take me several days. And I realized that wasn't a good use of my time. So now I look at the time involved and ask myself, how can I make this process more streamlined? So in the case of my blogs, can I write a shorter piece? Can I have my virtual assistant do all the links and find the photos and do the search engine optimization, all of that, constantly strategizing how you can be in your zone of genius more often and offload the tasks that aren't in your zone of genius to somebody else, or don't do them at all, or whatever. You have to do what's realistic for you. That is the second piece of my review. How can I get faster and more efficient at what I'm doing? The third piece has to do with managing my energy, and I absolutely suck at this. I will be totally transparent with you guys. I am the kind of person who will sit down at 6:30 in the morning in front of my computer and not look up until 3 p.m., haven't eaten anything, haven't gotten up and stretched, and I'm ravenous and my brain has completely turned off because it needs to be fed. It needs energy. Obviously, if you're going to be an efficient human being, that's like a given. And I do this all the time. I sort of make the argument that I'm in the state of flow. I don't want to interrupt what I'm doing, but it's kind of stupid. It's not the most efficient way to work, and I'm always seeking the most efficient way to work. So I now give myself a score on a scale of 1 to 7. How well did I manage my energy today? Because I also have a blood sugar thing, and if I don't eat at regular intervals, I think I have to have protein by 10 a.m. I will get sleepy between 3 and 5, and I will have to take a nap, and the nap will last an hour every time. So that's an hour that I lose in my day that if I just were to eat properly, I could completely avoid. And sometimes when I get tired in that lull between 3 and 5, I'll drink a coffee to get through without taking a nap, and then I won't be able to sleep at night, which just exacerbates the problem for the next day. So part of my review now is to just gauge, how is my energy today? And if it was good, what did I eat? Let's think about it. Or if it wasn't good, if I did have the after lunch crash, was it because I just kind of carbo loaded? I just ate leftover pizza for lunch. Making mental notes of those things is a really good way to ensure that on a day when I have a lot on my to-do list or something that's going to take a lot of deep focus sessions, I can be strategic about how I energize my body throughout the day so that I can last the, longest amount of time. So, guys, there it is. That's the episode. Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope that you guys find this useful. I mean, ultimately, you can go back to the lifestyle design episodes if you want an actual, suggestion for a time management strategy that might work for your personality type, I did mention some, even some that work for me, like the school day schedule is one that's really fun. You work for an hour on one topic and then you switch gears and you work for an hour on another topic. By all means, I'll link to those episodes in the show notes here so that you guys can check those out. But as long as you create a system with these 4 components in them, you are going to do just fine. So if you found this content valuable enough to warrant a tip, you can show your appreciation by visiting buymeacoffee.com/Jennie O'Connor, or you can support the show by rating and reviewing. But if you do, be sure to take a screenshot of your review, post it to your stories, and tag me at Your Creative Fairy Godmother. That way you will be entered into my giveaway for the best book I have ever come across on how to slay imposter syndrome, The Middle Finger Project by the inimitable and ever so sassy Ash Amberjay. The contest runs until December 31st, and trust me, you guys, this book will change your life. And speaking of changing your life, my goal is to help creative people like you step into the spotlight and make real money from their art. I have created a ton of free resources to help you out with this. One of those is my money mindset quiz, which will teach you how to uncover your limiting beliefs around wealth so you can rewrite them and invite in endless abundance. You can find that at jennyeoconnor.com/money. Until next time, you are amazing and I love you. Now get on out there and do the thing.